Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to yet another exciting edition of the IAAFI Sustaining Happiness in Marriage series, put together by the Institute for Work and Family Integration, a research, educational, and advocacy organization in the front line of work and family issues, recognized as the Distinguished Family Organization in Africa by the Secretary General of the United Nations in our 2018 report. Living together is a unique opportunity to grow in marital love and friendship. The marriage relationship team at the Institute has been studying trends and coping strategies in marriages during this period. In previous editions of this webinar series, we covered issues on stress, anxiety over uncertainties, how to identify the causes of this anxiety and to mitigate against them. We also looked at effective communication, speaking to be heard. Then we looked at productivity at work, when you're working from home with your spouse, working from home, and children schooling from home, how to negotiate with the family. Today, we shall zoom into the power of unity, oneness, striving for one mind and one purpose. With me in the studio this evening is an intergenerational mixed panel of two couples. One is over 40 years, actually 44 years of marriage, and then the other is 18 years of marriage. This is to give a special robustness to our discussion this evening. First is a great alumnus of our Married Couples Relationship Program, MCRO. Both are lawyers, family advisors, and guardians counselors. Please join me to welcome Barrister Kingsley and Barrister Mrs. Angela Ngozi Ekwem. Then, of course, we have the founder and co-founder of the Institute for Work and Family Integration, Sir Charles and Mrs. Gloria Osezwa. Both are certified marriage therapists who have been helping couples over the past decade grow in happiness. So our panelists, do you want to say hi to our attendees?
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you again.
All right, great. We are in for a good time and we are good to go. So we stay the ground rules. Kindly post your questions in the Q&A section. You will find it at the bottom of your screen or at the top, depending on the type of device you are using. And also you can vote for questions already asked. This will give it priority in our choice of selection of questions to be answered. I am Charles Aigbona, the Executive Secretary of the Institute for Work and Family Integration. I shall be your host. So let the party begin. I would like to start with your words. Talking of oneness, why is oneness important for sustaining happiness in marriage? Your words, please.
Well, I think it's a ladies first, so I think Gloria will take the first stab.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Before I start, I would like to remind us, that this oneness, this topic itself, is what couples promise themselves, on their wedding day, two that becomes one. So it becomes a struggle that each married couple will have to deal with for the rest of their lives. And we know that marriage is hard work, but it is sublime at the same time. And on this journey of love, we will always meet with those, rough patches along the way. And if couples are united, if they have this oneness, they'll be able to weather through, these bad patches, these rough patches, without losing any heart, without wounding each other. And of course, that means they'll be able to live their life you know, in the manner and way that will enhance their relationship. You know, those parties, they deal with it one at a time. And the couples, they walk through it. It takes two to tango, and especially in marriage. And as such, nobody can go it alone. Not one person can go it alone. So the two of them have to be united and to help each other and to continue. And this oneness gives them the opportunity, you know, to be better refined, to be renewed, because they will now learn how to use those opportunities to pull together, to pull, you know, towards each other at all times. They will now work for the good of the couple rather than for the individuals. And of course, with this embraced, with this oneness embraced, they are able to create a bright and cheerful home for their children to thrive. So I let Charles take it from there.
Thank you, Gloria. But Charles, you know, let me just contribute to what Gloria said by reminding us of our, if you like, the fundamentals of marriage. Marriage is about love. Love has two desires. The desire for the happiness and success of the beloved. And secondly, ultimately, unity. In marriage, the two desires of love, happiness and success, and unity are fulfilled. At our wedding, on our wedding day, we are reminded of the importance of unity in achieving happiness and success in marriage. And there are a lot of symbols and signs that are presented that demonstrate that vividly. If you're from a part of the world, this is done 3 times. At the traditional wedding, at the civil wedding in the court or registry, and in the church. I like to say in each of these, at each of these occasions, you are symbolically welded, if you like, bolted together. At the first instance, it includes the family. But what we see is that when you identify your bride at the traditional level, and the elder pronounces his blessing, you hold each other's hand, we see the joy and happiness that envelops the crowd and the family. This is repeated in the court, at the registry, and sacramentally, which is the final sealing in the church. I assume the same thing happens in the mosque. This is symbolic. Now, the point here, though, is that if I seek the happiness of my wife, and she seeks my happiness and success, we seek each other's happiness and success, with the objective, we will bond more. And this is really why, I'm glad you mentioned FCR in your introduction. At the Married Couples Relationship Program, we encourage couples to hold hands. For Gloria and I, when we hold hands, the adrenaline flows. I guess I'll come back to that again later. But the point here is this, that when you seek the happiness of each other, there's that goodness that envelops you and the house. You create a happy and joyful environment around the home. And seeking or proactively seeking the good of each other. And what you have, therefore, is that bright and cheerful home, which Gloria mentioned very vividly, which Jose Maria made as if you like, as an objective for married couples. And I think we cannot overemphasize unity. It is when you are united in the pursuit of love, you find happiness. And all the challenges and difficulties Gloria talked about can then be overcome because you are seeking the good of each other.
Oh, thank you very much.
Charles, I think I am.
Thank you very much, you said what. I mean, I was drawn into your analogies and examples. Yeah, and it's quite very clear to me here, the adrenaline and all that. So if you say oneness is so critical for sustaining happiness in marriage, let me ask the Equems, what does it mean really? You know, that couples have to be completely open to one another? What does this really connote for marriages?
Okay, I wanted to hold my husband's hands to find out if the adrenaline will flow. And I think, you know, the more you try it, you know, the more it flows. Well, talking about oneness in marriage, some things will have to lead to this oneness, because first of all, you have to build the foundation of your union on love. And once you've agreed, like Mr. Sezua said, that love is seeking the greater good and happiness of the other person, then you have no reason not to be open to your spouse. And openness here involves trust, confidentiality, reliability amongst the people that are in this union. That's the husband and wife. And trust, which is very fundamental, is not an incident. It's a journey that is deliberate, because you build on it every day with all the activities that go on in the home, keeping nothing to yourself, because you really need to spill it all out, no matter how unsavory it might be, you know, to the knowledge of your spouse. And where you have even found yourself to have kept some things, at some point you're going to still do it, because every little act that poses the danger of distrust will keep eating at the relationship. Because once trust is lost because of lack of openness or sincerity, honesty amongst the people who are involved in this union, then they are being set up for serious challenges in the family. And this conscious effort is what is required of couples to make, so that in enjoying their relationship, they are not looking behind their back, wondering what is going on. Is he with me? Is she towing my lines? Are there surprises along the way? And when you know that this trust has been built, then the bliss is assured in the relationship. I guess Kingsley will have other things to add.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to have to hold my wife's hands too, also to feel her temperature, to be sure that adrenaline is running. You know, in marriage, each time I watch my wife speak about our marriage, for instance, I admire her. I even find myself loving her even more, because I see so much passion and so much love. But having said that, there's something a bit strange in a pleasant way about marriage. It's not like science, where they say 1 + 1 is 2. 1 + 1 is 1. So Angela and Kingsley, if you like, you can say Angela and Kingsley is Equem. So when I look at myself and I ask myself, what is going to make me happy? What is going to make my wife happy? And I said, will I be dishonest to myself? Will I like transparency to myself? Will I like to hold back things that should be able to make me function properly? The same thing applies also as it concerns Angel, for instance. Now, and I ask myself, what is that thing that will be able to make me happy, to make us happy? And I say, you know what? I naturally want to donate myself to her. I naturally want to be inclined towards listening to her, to make everything that is in me, whether it's talking the way I talk, whether it's the way that I breathe, if you like, whether it's the way that I eat, whether it's the kind of football or the movies that I watch, I try to make it to work for her. And how does it work for her? It works for her because it's not a function of my trying to make her to live what I need her to live for. But it's a function of allowing her to live what she needs to live for. Of course, obviously, it has to be something positive, but there is nothing that is negative in marriage. Such a wonderful and a beautiful institution. I can tell you, before we got married, I used to be a little bit scared. I'm coming from a legal background. I always tell my friends, you know what, this thing I'm going into, that's the word. I actually use the word, this thing I'm going into, if it's not working, well, we always know where we have to start to sort ourselves out. But eventually we discover that that's not the right way to go about it. And the beauty of the whole thing is, it's giving us so much joy and so much happiness. To the extent that I deny myself in love, not in pain, recognizing that I have to make those sacrifices to make my marriage with my spouse to work for her and to work for me. I try as much as I could to make her to do what she wants to do. Remember also, by doing that, she recognizes that as well, and she plays out the same kind of an orientation. You know, we hear stories about people when they are playing football, they say they're playing football, and because they don't want anybody, their wife or their kids, to disturb them, you find out a situation where people even throw out members of their family from the window without realizing that they have done that. How wrong could that be? How do you sustain a marriage that way? How do you sustain happiness? Now, this is something that works in every aspect. It's not just in some aspect, it's on any and everything that has to do with marriage, that has to do with my marriage with Angel. Perhaps we should take a pause and look at something else again, and then we continue. Over to you.
Kingsley, now that makes quite some sense, you know. But let me go back to the Osezwas. What are the characteristics of oneness in marriage, and how can one foster them? I just begin to wonder, are they really like goals, destinations to be achieved, or a journey? Is it a journey?
I think this time I'll venture first. Charles, let me say, definitely oneness is not a destination. It is indeed a journey towards an ultimate goal of perfect union. I mean, but as humans, we can't achieve perfection here. It's a work in progress. So we are continuously striving to achieve a perfect union. But like Gloria was saying, you're going to find challenges. We're going to be tested for that love. Remember, it's a journey of love. Happiness and success, and ultimately union. So you're going to be tested for love. So I call it a journey of love. So we are tested in the circumstances and events that occur in our daily lives to reconfirm, do you still love me? And this is really where, when Angel was making her contribution just now, I talked about trust. It's in the reaffirmation of love that builds trust in those circumstances and events of everyday life. If you confirm, your spouse gets reassured. And with trust, we become more vulnerable. You become more open, which is exactly what the equation we're talking about. We are more open to each other, and therefore you share easily, and you know each other. If you don't know your spouse, you can't love them the way they need to be loved. And so that's fundamental. So to be loved, you need to be open. So it's a continuous journey and it's a continuous struggle. Let me put it this way. Trust and vulnerability are the two pillars of happy marriages. This is something we emphasize again. I keep going back to MCRO, the Marriage Couples Relationship Program. We emphasize it, and equip couples on how to live it in their daily life. But you'll be challenged. There's no students who go to school and say, I'm very smart, without taking an exam. The same thing in marriage. You'll be tested and tried and challenged. And if you reconfirm again and again, trust is built, and then you become more vulnerable, more trusting. Now, you ask, what are the characteristics? We trust. When you trust each other, and you know you depend on each other, you become loyal to each other. It means I do what I say I will do, and I live and do what I'm supposed to do when it comes to my wife, whether she's there or not. I'm faithful to her, just like I expect she'll be faithful to me. So we have to, earn that trust again and again. So I'll say loyalty, you become more caring. You care for each other. Indeed, you become more proactive because you don't even want it to occur. You want to proactively take action to make sure they don't even experience the discomfort or incident that may have, the irritants that may occur. So you are caring, you become more appreciative of the talents and attributes they have been given to enrich your marriage. So consequently, you find that you admire each other like good friends. And I think this is again, without going back to a bright and cheerful home, these attributes or characteristics make all for that bright and cheerful home. But I think I'll let Gloria elaborate on some of the, I said, let her do the heavy lifting this time. So, I think the person who comes second always do the heavy lifting in this matter.
Thank you, Charles. Well, let's see how heavy the liftings are. And, the whole idea is to address or to foster oneness, in our relationship. Because if any marriage is meant to survive, this is at the heart of it. So fostering that oneness means keeping our promises made to our spouses. Now, I dare to ask you, do you keep your promise you make to your spouse? Or do you make a promise and wait till another occasion comes for you to make a promise? And I say, oh, okay, the last time it was because I couldn't do it, so this time I'm going to do it. You start to lose that, trust. So like Charles said, when we make promise, we have to fulfill them. So it's very important. Now, I'd like to ask again, do we keep in confidence things we share in the family? Because we're talking about, fostering this oneness. What are those things? How do we foster them? Because many of us know all the attributes, but living them is where we are all wanting. So it's good to ask ourselves these questions. Do we keep in confidence, things that we share in the family? Charles cannot tell me, things, and I go about and making it an open secret in my, secondary family or among my friends. That does not foster oneness. It is a betrayal of confidence. It is a betrayal of trust. And that is why we have to ensure that whatever is discussed in the family, in your nucleus family, is kept within that family. Because it is meant for you and your spouse to enrich your life and to enlighten you. So it is not for other people's consumption. And as well, Charles talked about, same with the EQM, they talked about this trust, vulnerability. We have to be trustworthy in our relationship. Charles has to be more dependent on me when I say, I am going to do this and I do it. When I tell him, hey, don't worry, sweetheart, I got your back. And he knows that really nothing will go wrong today or wherever it is that plane has been made. So it's for us to, from time to time, it's a continuous process. So it's for us from time to time to reflect and see, in what way have I actually lived out this trustworthiness? So when we say, oh, he doesn't trust me, oh, I don't know why he doesn't trust me, we have to reflect and find out how we have betrayed that trust one time or the other, and recount our steps and correct them, because that is what it is. Now, for loyalty, talking about your spouse, their weaknesses, outside your home or with whoever it is, that doesn't show loyalty. My responsibility is to project, his good efforts, his capability and strength. The weaknesses we have to deal with in the family. So Charles has already dealt with admiration and appreciation, but we have to be able to let our spouses know that we admire them. We shouldn't let pride or jealousy stand in the way of our doing so, because that is what encourages the individual to strive more, to let you in, to let down their guard, to admit you into their emotional world and to transform it. And that is how you actually acquire what we call the couple energy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's wrap this up very nicely in looking at the circumstances. Now, leaving out this oneness in marriage. So what are these circumstances? Where are the circumstances where couples can cultivate and nurture these attributes of oneness in marriage? That moves me to the EQUEMS. Kingsley and Angela, let's go.
Okay, so it's going to be me this time, or Angel? Well, it's so interesting. When you listen to people that have 4 decades experience in marriage, then obviously try to grow wiser, and we've been able to talk about things that foster trust, as it were. Well, one thing to me, a little bit on the periphery of what the question you asked, has to do with the kind of values that we expect to uphold in my marriage with Angel. It is so important. What kind of impression is going to be expressed about us even after we have gone? Is it likely that it's going to be something that will be very uncharitable, something that is not nice, something that will be more like opposite of virtues, as it were? And in trying to think about those things, it makes me even try to work a lot harder. And I can say, I try to do and take steps on such things that will be able to end the trust that she has in me. In everything. Is it in terms of the kind of children we want to have? Is it in kind of the way that we deal with people, how we relate to people? Is it in terms of the work that we do? Is it in terms of finances that we handle or the investment that we have? I can tell you there is nothing that I can do in my small corner that Angel cannot do. Because we believe that we have ended in our marriage. And we believe also that's part of the things that has given our marriage character. I can tell you also that at each point in time, I have an idea what my wife is doing at a particular time in the day. I could guess reasonably. No, I don't think it's going to be in that place. And it's because she has done so well in trying to earn my trust. And I suspect too, please correct me if I'm wrong. I suspect.
You're still working in progress.
And I've done also for her to be able to evaluate. And marriage is not just about any distrust or talking about the character. It's not just about the present. No. It's an engagement of love and sacrifice that I have with Angel, not just now, not just tomorrow, but it's forever. So if it's about singing a love song to her that will make her to be happy, you might well have a horrible voice, but I try to work at it. And you discover clearly that love songs do not have expiry dates. I'm not aware of any love song. Perhaps Jose Suarez can tell us, because they are in this business for about 4 decades. Is there any love song in the past that seems to begin and probably will end at 2:30? Love songs are love songs.
They always
love song.
My favorite is a love song, and I would like to sing it forever. As the challenges present itself, the love songs are there to enjoy, to take care of. And so that way we'll keep going. But then let me go back to my wife. She has this beautiful way of wrapping up the shortfalls in what I've said and what I haven't said.
No, I can only add to what you have said, because when we talk about unity in marriage, we're not actually referring to uniformity, but we tend to speak, to the cohesion with which the couples are living out this their beautiful relationship called marriage. And the unity is shown in their shared values. That does not mean they have to always agree on everything or have the same opinion on every issue. No, but they will have to do it in a way that there will be a convergence of all these, divergent opinions, so that, they will now have to present this value system that they even live in their own home. So the circumstances, it involves so many things. The discipline of the children, the choice of schools the children will have to go to, the kind of education you want to put on them. He spoke about the investments that can be agreeable to the couple, that will be for the good and greater, good of the family. They agree on these things, where to live, even sometimes choice of vacation destinations, because you never know the kind of little things that can trigger off, any altercation in a marriage. So you have to think about all these things and the consistency you have in the show of affection. Even when you've quarreled, we've lived with people in the house who sometimes come to me and ask me, don't you ever quarrel with Uncle Kingsley? I say, of course we do, but we've never quarreled to the point that it's carried over to the next day, and he's a great person in saying he's sorry. I say my own sorry in a different way, his own he comes out really quick with the apologies and all of that. I could maybe drag it on for some time, but at the end of the day, yes, I know that for my own sanity and for the good of the marriage, this is something that we need to do. So the circumstances where you and oneness is vast. It covers everything, even in the choice of where to live, the kind of clothes you wear and everything, but basically the values that you promote in your family, because that is what the children will see, and that is what they will emulate, and that is what will stand them well in their growth and development in the future.
Yeah, I told you.
Now we have to go over to the Q&A section. Please post your questions in the Q&A section. And you can vote for questions already asked. So that gives it a higher rating, a selection of questions to be answered. I also made a promise that we'll answer some of the yet unanswered questions from previous sessions, but let's see how it goes. The first question here is kind of cosmetic, but I'll just read it and then we see how we answer it. I observed that the wives of the two couple panelists are sitting on the left-hand side of their husband. Is anything significant about this position? Does it contribute to happiness and unity of married couples? I can answer as an MC, but two of you that are sitting the way you are sitting, maybe you just speak for yourselves.
Well,
I think the MC should answer it.
Should I go first? Or?
Please go ahead.
Okay, well, actually, whether it's on the right or on the left, it doesn't matter to me as long as I have my wife. And again, But when she's on my left, I'm always very comfortable. I can tell you that if she gets up here and walk away, even if for 1 second, there'll be trouble. In fact, there will be small bursts of small sweats in my head. You know, basically, because she has to be near me. But she mentioned something about the choice of holiday. You know, where to go to, where one can be able to relax. And this is part of trying to build up. This is part of trying to build up that trust, really, and trying to build up love. And that way it becomes endurable. Enduring, that way it becomes sustainable, because it's about happiness and sustainability in marriage. And it's all about, look, really, I can't do without her. I can't.
Well, I can say that the having to sit on his left, I mean, he's the head of the home. He needs his right hand to be free. And with his left hand, he's holding my right hand and leading the way. So that way we don't get lost.
Okay, I think that's
Okay.
Fantastic.
And if I may add just one statement to that, well, I like staying on his left-hand side because that's where the heart is. And I'm the living heart of Charles Xavier. So being there in person, you know, resounds and he hears it. You know, our hearts beat as one as we hold our hands.
And I like to say, I like my right hand to be free so I can protect my wife, you know, with a heavy punch across the door. Anybody's coming. That's on a light note. But like you said, Jazz, it was a very light question. Okay. It's nice.
We'll move on to the next one. And the panel is throw light on the very big challenge of family pressures on young marriages today. The overbearing influence of parents, particularly mothers, on their sons and their daughter-in-laws. This has created many problems and broken many marriages. How do you handle the external customers? That's essentially the question, the in-laws, the mother-in-laws.
Are you directing it to who?
I think we just speak.
Okay.
People says well.
We take it.
We'll take it. Okay. I think okay, go ahead.
Well, if I will start.
This is mother-in-laws.
Excuse me. I am a mother-in-law as well, so I can, you know, I will stand in here for the many that are out there. But what I've always told, you know, young couples is the fact that, you know, whether your mother-in-law or your mother, and all that, you see, the interesting thing there about them being overbearing as it appears about their son. This is a man, a young man who was had by one woman, and the same young man who is being loved by another woman. So the poor man is in between two lovers. So the context there, everybody wants the good of the man. So what I always tell them is, you know, to the young ladies who are married to these young men, I tell them, your mother-in-law will not be your problem if you love them the way you love your mother. You see, there's always this misconception that mother-in-laws, they are witches, they will kill you, they will not let you marry. You know, once you have that behind your mind, it presupposes you go in with your biases and you start to confirm them. But if you are able to disabuse your mind and see your mother-in-law as your mother, because you are loving her son, and for that, because you love her son, you love everybody that he loves. Once you have that universal mind, you find that you will find peace and you find harmony, in your relationship with your mother-in-law. I have a very good example that I've lived how many years now that I've been married. My mother-in-law is my best friend. If she wants anything, she calls me, and I chat with her like I would deal with my mother. because I love my husband. So I don't want to empty everything. So I let the others have something to say.
It's you and I.
But Richard, will you say something or have something to say? Can it be me?
No, I think. Let me say. Yeah, I think it's us.
Yes.
But just to add to what Gloria has said, the role of mother-in-law, I think, is the test of leadership of the son. And I'll give a personal example here. Just like Gloria said, my mother loves me. Let me tell you a story. I think a story I tell at the MCRO weekend. And I say, look, going home, we all go home for holidays and all this good stuff. I used to drive my Volkswagen. I go to the village. My mother likes to stay in the front seat. But now I'm married. I go home with my wife and sometimes my kids. These are the early days. And my wife has to stay in the front seat. But there's a particular day we are going out after church. My mother sits in the front seat. What do you do? My wife coming, sees my mother on the front seat, went right back. I know there was always a standing rule. I think we need to discuss really as couples to avoid it's a matter of understanding. There was always a standing rule between my wife and I. If there's any potential crisis arising from my family, let me deal with it. If there's anything that may create problem in her family, let her deal with it. The point is, we became ambassadors to each other's family. So that's the second part of the same coin. I deal with the issues in my family, she deal with one in her family, but she represents me in my family, and I represent her in her family. Our parents will always love us. It's your spouse that is the intruder. You have to market them as best as you can. It is your failing if your wife is afraid of your parents or uncomfortable with your parents. That's why it's the issue of leadership. It's the failing of the spouses to show leadership and take responsibility in protecting their nucleus family that creates those anxieties and problems. The issue I was saying, okay, Gloria won't come out. Now I suddenly realize why. It is my responsibility to go and meet my mother. And I say, Mama, we are going out to, you are the car owner. Car owner stay at the back of the seat. So let me move the seat so you can sit down. So my wife can sit there. Unfortunately for me, there was an auntie standing by who said, oh yes, now they're car owner, they say now, you are the car owner. Faith helps us, but we have to take the initiative to do the right thing. When we are consistent in what we are doing, your spouse is comfortable and is happy, is trusting. Again, we use the word about building trust. It's trusting and being loyal to that promise to love, to protect, defend, and care. It's when something is lacking there, all these other issues and shenanigans of witches and wizards come up. There's no mother-in-law that will kill her daughter-in-law because she loves her son too much to want him to suffer. After all, they all prayed for that success. And that's all they want. So the son-in-law, the son needs to take more responsibility to educate the mother on how they will want to live their life. We also need to tell our parents how we want to live our life. My mother, well, now they are best friends. So when me and the odd person, I say, I call my mother Mama Lolo because my mother is 96 now. But she still sings, how do you sing that your song? They dance. And when she comes into the room, my mom is all smile. But me, I say, oh, Mama Lolo, how you did? She's living with me here, so no problem. But I think it's a relationship you build. Fortunately, she's been very responsible and wonderful. But we all have to make that effort to create that harmony in the family. The bright and cheerful home we desire. It's about a mission. It's a mission of love. Our effort in marriage should be to love those my wife loves because I love her. She loves those I love because she loves me. It's a sacrifice we must make to create that harmony in the family. It's an extension of our love. Sorry, I think I may have gone a little bit too far into this one.
The younger couple want to make one or two comments, just one comment on this, so that we'll move on to other.
Okay, let me just mention something briefly. You know, fortunately or unfortunately, shortly after I met Angel, my mother-in-law passed. So I didn't have the benefit of meeting her and loving her. But I'm sure that if she had met me, I have a feeling that she could have hung on for a while, you know, basically. but the thing is just that I think Uncle Charles and Mrs. Sezua have actually, so there's nothing more to add. But at the same time, recognizing too, that since we're talking about marriage, which is about sacrifice, it involves a lot of work. It's also about challenges too. But the fact that, yes, we've had it so, in fact, I can tell you sometimes my wife is actually closer to my mother, can you imagine? Than myself. My wife, my mother relies much more on my wife, and so on. It's not because the gentleman,
don't feel bad.
The gentleman that asked that question is not just about mother-in-law alone. He just all in-laws, or even people that are not even in-laws, but some kind of intruders into the marriage. And somehow he has been able to work out very well. And regardless of the difficulty, challenges that such third parties, if you like, present, once you have trust between yourself and your wife, they will be able to deal with it. I am comfortable with the position that the Sezuas have mentioned.
Thank you. So
I think Angel wants to chip in something. You want to chip in something?
No, I was only going to point out that he cheated me in that because he married me as an orphan, you know, but when I realized the kind of love he had for his mother, who is an exceptional woman, you know, I used to tell my friends, because he comes from a very large family, there are 13 of them, and friends were worried, said, how are you going to cope with these people? I said, well, if my husband is half as nice as the mother, then maybe I'll marry him again. That just sums it up.
That's good.
So another question here. Please, what do you do when you open up your spouse and he uses even the slightest things against you? That's one. From the same person. What do you do when your husband puts his mom and siblings ahead of your family, so much so that he won't make any plans for your wedding anniversary, but looks forward to his brother's visiting day, I think, and we'll talk about it endlessly. So you just choose one and answer, and then we'll move on to the next.
Do you want to go first?
Okay, having to choose one above the other. You know, once you've recognized that you've married into this family, you just take them on as being one more of your own family. So once you don't see that difference, but I see that there's a fundamental problem of we being less sacrificial. We have stopped being sacrificial beings. That's why, you know, we try to appropriate so much to ourselves. You know, but once you see your spouse and his family as your own and just lock yourself in as one more in that family, I think things will work out well. And you won't start noticing all these little things of, oh, he's putting me last and putting his family first and all of that. You know, because the way my siblings relate to him, I could spend maybe 10, 15 minutes with my siblings on the phone, and he will go ahead and spend like an hour, you know, with them. You know, so it depends on how you have decided, because all this love thing is a decision of the will. You've decided to incorporate them into your life as being one more. So that way you don't even see yourself as an outsider. most of his nieces and his relations, I know their birthdays more than he does. Well, I remind him of his own, so that's not really an issue here. You know, but we need to decide to love these people that are in our lives because they are our family. And don't start grading, oh, he puts me first, he puts me last. No, because you're just inviting frustration for yourself, you know, because you will now be agonizing over things that really do not worth the trouble.
Okay, any other comments on the first question, which is, what do you do when you open up to your spouse and he uses even the flimsiest things against you? Gloria, you want to take that?
Oh, okay. Anyway, we talked about vulnerability, you know, as a way of fostering oneness. And that's exactly what this individual is experiencing, because you have to let go, you have to let down, so you can be. It means that the spouse has not understood what it means to be loved. You cannot love what you don't know or who you don't know. So your spouse has opened up to you so you can know them. It is not, you know, it will be a disloyal lack of faithfulness on your part. You know, you are not really loving your spouse if you now use it against them. Because tomorrow they will lock up and you will not know what is happening in his life and you will complain. So the purpose of letting your spouse know you is so you can have, you know, a unified front of dealing with issues. So if you happen to know that your spouse has this limitation, the onus is on you to support them in overcoming those limitations rather than using it against them. So if we find ourselves at that situation of doing that, it is time for us to change our tactics, because it does not augur well for loving or oneness. That is the utmost, you know, for our relationship to thrive.
Okay, good. Now let's go into money matters. My wife's money affairs as a personal affair. No intrusion, no dictation, but my money is seen as family money. Can you help explain why? Because the family bear part of the inconveniences caused by the nature of her job.
Okay, can I say something here? Can I go ahead?
Yes, Kingsley.
You know, we talked at the beginning about oneness, where the arithmetic of 1 + 1 is not 2, but 1 + 1 is 1. That's marriage. We talked at the beginning here about transparency and being open, working hard, because marriage is a project. We have to work on it. It's not just simply to assume, yes, that yeah, of course, the grace of God is wonderful. There's no doubt about it. But the same God expects us also to show a lot of commitment and make a lot of sacrifices towards working for the success of marriage. So why would a spouse regard your money is your money? Now, in my view, there's a difference between administration of sources of income as distinct from the kind of orientation you have in residential ownership. If I am to tell you about my own experience in our own little corner, there is nothing I could do about our finances that Angel cannot do, and I'm glad with that. There is nothing that she can also do that, or what I can do that she will not be happy with, and that's fine. It works best for us. So I think couples will have to struggle more in trying to realize and appreciate much more the value of the oneness and the unity of purpose which they have and share in marriage. It's not about I, it's about we. Because you find out that the only thing, one of the things that causes challenge, brings challenge in marriage, a lot of time it has to do with this person said this and this is how the person said it. Or this person did this and this is how he did it, or he didn't do it this way. And that's a big challenge. So when I come out and tell him, you know, well, back up, that's not your bread, that's my bread. And that could be a problem. What does that mean really? Or she comes to tell me, this is her bread and I shouldn't get near there. Or I'm able to deal, I don't want to go into the areas about signing because whatever I can sign, she can sign, whatever she can sign, I can sign. And that makes us happy. Because remember, we're talking about sustainability in marriage. There's a lot to say in this area, but I think I have to yield to the gentleman with 4 decades of marriage. Let's hear from their wealth of experience.
Well, thank you, Kingsley. I think, Charles, issue of marriage is always very, funds or money, finances, it's always very sensitive in marriage. I find among couples, as we interact with a lot of them, it keeps coming up. But one thing I like to tell them always, look at the company or organization you work with or for. How does money come and how is it administered? I think most organizations I know, money comes and it goes into the accounting department, well, to your bank, but it's managed through one central unit called account department. And if you have a financial plan, call it a budget, that is what this money, that defines what the money will be used for. And of course, administratively, just like Kingsley has said, who administers the money, it really doesn't matter. They are signatories. They only confirm that they have authority, or if you like, common sense to make judgment on what is presented to them. What am I saying? Money comes into the family and it doesn't matter who God uses, but it's an instrument that can uplift, unite your marriage, or indeed you can use it to oppress, and it can also scatter your marriage. The choice is often ours. And I say the experience, or our daily experience of what successful businesses do should instruct us. But the other thing is that you find even very unlikely, even chief executives, they say, no, it's my money, she doesn't need to know about it, I give her. No, it doesn't work that way. A family is a project. And the money is, you earn money, my wife earns money, I earn money. It's the family's income. We need to decide how that money should be used. Should we know exactly what everybody is doing with their money? Maybe not the details of it. But what those broad things that are important to the family should be planned for. And then everybody flows with it. Who administers? I tell people, I don't go to the bank. If I go to the bank, I think I'll confuse people. I'll be lost myself. But my wife does a lot of the bank. She runs to the bank and does everything. And this is the truth. Because I've taken myself out of administration a long time ago. And I think, anyway, there's so much, like Kingsley said, to be said about this subject. But we need to remember, if your money is not uniting your family, you are doing something wrong. If it gives you extraordinary power over your spouse, you are doing something wrong. Your money should unite and should uplift your spouse and give them that confidence that you love them and you trust them. And your family should feel that comfort of the united approach in managing the resources God has blessed your family with.
Okay, so we go over to issues of communication. Gloria, you want to say something?
Well, anyway, I just wanted to make a statement, which we are used to, saying in our own family. Your money, my money is our money. So it doesn't matter where the money comes from, it's our money to be dispensed. And that money is only a messenger. Money is not an end, it's a means to an end. So to use it for the family, like he said, to achieve greater objective is the purpose. The personalities of the individuals might, affect this a little bit. And that is why you have different strategies that you can use in managing your finances. But the most important thing is for it to be talked about. You have to discuss your finances. Don't be shy, don't be timid, don't feel, just talk about it. This is our life, and money has to be part of that life. And we have to decide, this is what we have to do as a family, and this is how we are going to discuss. So you have, in the other extreme, you respect each other's money personality, by allowing some aspect to be handled, like Charles said.
Okay, talking of personality, in the married couple relationship program, we have test on these personality types and temperament. Okay, so let's go to questions on communication. This is a tough one. Let's have it. What happens when the spouse blatantly refuses to communicate and believes they know everything? Do you want to digest that a bit?
Yeah, the same thing. Yeah.
I wonder why he's pointing at me.
No, because it's a difficult one. Let her address it.
So I will add another one.
Just like.
Okay.
Sorry?
Okay, go ahead. I was about to add.
Yes, just like Charles Ibona talked about the temperament. Some people have temperaments that are very domineering, and they will always want the whole conversation to end with their opinion or their assertion. So when especially for us women, if you know that you have a highly opinionated husband, there are subtle ways of suggesting things to him, without being too pushy or overbearing yourself. Even if it's ideas that that he may not buy, but the way you also present it, then you let it be. At some point in time, maybe in his quiet time, he will now think over whatever it is you have suggested. You let him own that idea. At the end of the day, you've still gotten your satisfaction of having the thing carried out. But the way you have said it, because it will always want to. He will always want to have the upper hand in the conversation. And sometimes you just don't rock the boat. If you know that the person is not going to allow you air your views, or that he will always want his own views, to be carried. What do you want? What do you seek? Peace, right? Okay, once he's not suggesting something evil to you, you let him go ahead, and in your own good time, you bring up your own views, which he might just, in his humility, accept as the correct point of view. But because when you now start challenging him, why will it always be your view? Must it always be your opinion that will be carried? Then you create tension that is not needed. So the manner of speaking, the temperament of your spouse, these are things that must always be at the back of your mind when you are raising up issues and arguing about stuff.
Any other comments? Go move to the other question on sex.
Hello, Charles, are you there?
Yes. Any comment on this, or we'll move over to the next question? How can one handle a marriage where the husband bases his love only on sex, which means situation where he did not get the sex, he assumed there's no love again? No.
I'm not sure where Gloria said I deal with those things better. I thought you were going to say the equation because they are younger in this matter.
Okay.
But it's an irony we are having a debate about who will discuss sex. But yet, it is very vital in marriage. I tell people when couples come to us to discuss, I say, the irony of marriage is that everything we do It's about prelude to sex. Admiration, appreciation, gratitude. I don't know where we're in Lagos, but you know, if you grew up in the rural area, you will see those free roaming chickens. And you see how the cock dances around the hen. That is the relationship between husband and wife. You pay attention, you admire each other, you know each other more. So that when it comes at the end of it, you are all prepared. But if we do the African lover where you say, oh, I want sex now, eat and run, it doesn't work. That is not love. You can actually get that from a paid sex person. So you have to treat your wife with love and care. You prepare them. I think in one of the last series, one of the panelists used an analogy which he said, look, we should appreciate that our wives, you know, with due respect, I say this, the men are like automatic cars. He was using the example. You kick and it goes. But the wives are like a manual car. You have to nurture, prepare. You change gear gradually, then it finally gets on gear 4, then it takes off, boom, and it may even overtake the automatic. We have to know the differences between the sexes and work with it. I think, you know, maybe they are very young couples. It's a tendency among young men, but please, love is about emotional bonding. The climax of feeling love, which really comes with playing with each other, being friends, and then it comes naturally. I don't think when you were boyfriend and girlfriend, that's what you were doing, though. But I think if it was modified, you will enjoy it much longer. So let me put it this way.
Just to add to what Charles has said, you know, it is very easy, you know, to base, you know, love affairs on, you know, sexuality or sex. But we have to, you know, it is important that the men realize, like you mentioned, that, you know, a woman needs time, needs, you know, wooing, needs romance.
I still chase my wife.
Oh, absolutely. If he doesn't, he'll be in trouble. So, anyway, so it needs romance. So it is not enough to just one sex. You have to ensure that, you know, your spouse is ready and you have given it the time that is required for you to be able to, you know, appreciate each other. So I leave that.
Yes, sex is the climax of romance. And daily life is all about chasing each other. The fondness you build up from that fondness, you know, till you get there. That's the ultimate, and you take it slowly. So your your wife can be there too.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I have a question to ask for
perspective.
Sorry?
You want to ask?
Okay, yes. My perspective will come by way. Yeah, my perspective will come by way of question to the couple, to the great couple that asked that wonderful question. If the perception is about sex every day, because that's the impression I get, will you do it when your wife is ill, for instance, if it must be every day? Will you do it when she's very tired, she's very, very indisposed? Must it be every day? Remember that the marriage you went into is not a marriage that you are engaged for with now. It's both now, tomorrow, and forever. So there are many more stops ahead. Oh, you are going to have a lot of it. So it need not be today. It need not be tomorrow. If the circumstances of her situation, whether it's health, whether it's very tired, traffic, etc., will impact on even the joy of the conjugal love itself. That's what I want to chip in for the couple's reflection. That's the question itself.
Yeah, and I don't think that denial of the sex should also be construed as lack of love. You know, because love can be expressed in so many things. You know, especially for the women who are more sensual, just like Mr. Cesar said, you know, the men being automatic cars. There are so many things that will arouse a woman, and if they are not there, she might just not be responsive. You know, so the man should not construe it as a show of lack of love when the woman refuses. And sometimes too, she might just require more chasing.
Okay, so very good.
Correct.
Correct.
That is it.
On trust,
You have to give attention.
and that we could, we'll round up today's session. In a situation where couples find it difficult to trust each other, that could be done. What could be done to create avenue for marital trust and fidelity? Something related to that also is where the trust of marriage is broken in less than a year in the marriage by the husband, what happens to that marriage? So trust issues. What do we do when they find it difficult to trust each other and when the trust has been broken?
Okay, I guess we can go first so that the Cesuas can actually wrap up, you know, with their insightful contribution. You know, because this thing, yes, this thing of trust, you know, is like a beautiful flower vase that when broken, yes, you can say that it will be difficult, you know, to get it back to its former shape, but from the broken pieces too, you can actually create something more beautiful than what you had before by consistently doing right by your spouse. You know, because that's why I said when people trust themselves to the point where you could actually say what your spouse's reaction will be in a particular situation. And we have so many trust issues right now in so many marriages, you know, infidelity, you know, abuse, both emotional and physical. All these things work at eroding the trust that we had before entering. You know, but when you enter, that's why I said trust is not the destination, is a journey. It's something you keep feeding. And you keep feeding it by doing right by your spouse, even making excuses, forgiveness. You know, because when you are forgiving as a spouse, it actually strengthens you. It makes you a very strong person and you withstand so many of these things that will come up. There will always be trust issues, but when you have also decided, that's why we keep learning that love is a decision of the will. You decide to love. You don't feel like loving. So when you know that that trust, something is eroding it or something is working at its destruction, of course, it's also your own resoluteness to work at it and create something more beautiful out of the broken vase.
Okay. Kingsley, you're not in agreement or you want to?
No. Notice that each time they ask a very difficult question.
Okay, fine.
Because it makes it easy for me.
We go to the third one. Anything on trust?
I agree entirely. And again, talking about this trust has to do with having to communicate more. Wherever you start having trust issues in couples, you will certainly discover there's a gap somewhere in communication. There are gaps somewhere in relationship. They have to look at themselves, how they relate. This trust issue can come by way of the way you speak to your wife, the way you correct your wife. Do you do that fraternally? Or you just correct her as if you are talking to some other person? In fact, we shouldn't even talk to some other person anyhow, but we're all human beings and we all have our dignity, you know? If it's about that communication issues, you know, basically, or about anger issues, perhaps you can try to show more restraint. I think the couple, the gentleman of the jail, the lady that asked that question, may have to, 1 year into the marriage, well, again, we have to expect too, that the first day in marriage, or of up to 5-6 years, hours we're having our issues on a regular basis, but very nice issues, I must tell you. You know, basically, for the first 5 years, after that, we started having some kind of stability. At the point, we're just cruising, more like an autopilot. recall that she did mention something about my nephews and this is asking questions about why don't you guys have misunderstanding? We have our own misunderstanding, but it's not something. Can you imagine having misunderstanding when you have the kids around? It's very embarrassing. Now, what values are you upholding? They are watching and record that these kids will also be married at some point, as it were.
Okay.
So, I suggest respectfully to this couple, they should try to communicate more. Of course, prayer is also important, it's key. Communication is part of prayer as well. There are so much to talk about here. But let's see whether we can get a wrap up from our Queen and King.
To say one word on trust so that we wrap up and move on.
Well, just following what they have said, I would like to address the aspect that deals with, lack of trust, into, 6 months or whatever, a year into marriage, and they have this problem of trust. So something must have happened that broke that trust. And to amend that is for the person that has been hurt to be asked, how do you want me to make up for this? Because if there is the act of, lack of faithfulness, it bruises the spirit and the emotion of the receiver. So to even try to start all over again, there has to be a base, and there has to be a base. So the individual has to be asked, how do you want to be pacified? How do you want me to make up for this? Once that is established, it becomes the beginning point of that renewal. So effort will be put into place, then all the other things that have been talked about, prayer and consistency, constancy, will now have a basis of affecting, and renewing and repairing, what has been destroyed. So the first thing they have to face is face up to the fact that this has happened. Secondly, we still love each other. Thirdly, I'm ready to make amends. And fourthly, where do I start? What do you need for me to do to amend, the one that has been done? So at least they will have, a beginning position to, to repair the damage that has been done.
Okay, so that wraps it up nicely. Chairman wants to add something.
Well, Charles, I think all has been said. I think it's been summarized. But suffice it to say, a betrayal, like Gloria has said, is an injury. And like if you have a cut, it needs to be treated properly. The first aid, yeah, you have to clean it and you do all the necessary things for it to start healing. The relationship has to be reconciliation, if you like, healing. The process of healing must start, and you must start it from properly. And that's why this dialogue, I know I've hurt you, first acceptance, and then find out what you need to do for that, for the grieved to be reconciled, and then you can start again. It will happen. It is betrayal will happen in relationships. I mean, when we talk about betrayal, sometimes we think it's sex. But I tell you, I say, even disloyalty, talking to your mother about the weakness or fault of your husband, sometimes can be more grievous than adultery. Adultery is hard to appreciate because it's a betrayal of a different type, and it can hurt significantly emotionally. Anyway, Charles, a lot has been said. Let me not start repeating the process again. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. I wish to thank our stellar speakers, Sir Charles and Mrs. Gloria Osezwa, and Kingsley and Angela Ekwem for this amazing session. and the great insights shared with us this evening. Next week is going to be spectacular, so stay tuned. We shall call it a day now. See you same time via the same link next week, where we shall answer more of your questions after sharing some more life hacks on this power of oneness. Least I forget, we have an online, the Married Couples Relationship Program, which is a weekend getaway, is taking place at the end of this month. It's going to be both an online and an offline event. It will take place on the 28th to 30th of August. It's a weekend that will change your lives forever. We shall send you details of the course so that you secure your seat at the course. So thank you, and then I would say thanks for being here. See you same time next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Restore so we can send it.
I like some questions.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Camera is still on. Thank you.
No.
We end the meeting now. We shall send the details of the program to you via email. Good night.
Good night, Charles.
Yeah.